You are live. Hey everybody, a very warm welcome to my live stream. It's been a few months since we've done one of these live streams. They are usually a combination of educational, ear training, mostly based base tidbits and nuggets, as well as some information. And today, I don't have my bass on, because I have a different surprise for you. So I'm really excited because, well, let me also tell you a little bit what happened since the last live stream, because a lot has happened in my life. I published the book. Where is it? Published the book. This one with the big Indiegogo campaign. A lot of you guys have supported us. It's been an amazing ride. So thank you for that. I hope you get the book. It's a very intensive but very, very powerful modality to get you learning the fretboard, being able to think ahead. It's about patterns, but the patterns want to disappear. So it is something that Wolf and I put a lot of study, years of development into it, and it is now ready for you. So if you'd like to get it on Amazon, if you haven't, then please do that. So that was one big news. Then the other big piece of news was we moved across the country. So last time I was coming at you from Los Angeles, California. Now I'm coming at you from beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. So it's been a busy, few months with boxes and moving and putting together a really fancy video studio. So we're very, very happy and proud of what we've built in the last few months. We also created a new teaching format, and that teaching format I call practice groups. And with that, I am super happy. It started with the idea of having an amazingly long waiting list. So I looked the other day, I have 192 people on that list, some of which have in the meantime been getting lessons or gotten into this new format. But I was just feeling so bad that a lot of people were interested in my lessons, which is just wonderful and exciting, of course. And I wasn't able to service them with one-on-one lessons. So what I did was I thought about a new teaching format. And a teaching format was born about, was it 5-6 months ago, I believe. And in that new teaching format, what we do is, because I discovered one-on-one in a session, you can be, I'm actually going to just check the comments real quick. If we are broadcasting, can I get YouTube to check in real quick with a comment, please? And Facebook, I'm going to my profile and my group, so I'd love to know if I'm coming through. Give me a sign of life there, please, YouTube and Facebook. So what I was going to say, this new practice format is wonderful because it's not as intensive as one-on-one. When you're sitting with the teacher and you have homework and you have, prepared something and the teacher looks at you, you can get a little flustered. So we all know that feeling. In a group setting, that is a little bit dispersed. So we have the, I'm getting thumbs up that we're coming through on Facebook. So YouTube, give me a thumbs up, somebody. And we have discovered that with these practice groups, you have other people in the group who might have a similar question, who play a mistake that you might have made, and so it's a wonderful way to learn particular topics in a consistent environment. They're 10 weeks long, they're all on Zoom. Everybody is in a little video box on my screen, and I watch you play, and everybody's on mute, and sometimes people volunteer, and they show what they had as homework. You get concise things, what to practice, PDFs, jam tracks, the whole 9 yards. And it's a 10-week commitment. You show up once a week with your bass on. If you're traveling, you watch the rerun. So this has worked extremely well, and we've been doing that now for half a year or so, and have had several topics ranging from ear training, ranging from song transcription, from the practice group that does the pattern system, my new book, and also a practice group for sort of easygoing, you're just kind of getting started, maybe don't want any stressful environment, but you're serious about learning, just want to get your feet wet a little bit with my methods, then that's the easygoing group, as we call it. And it's been extremely successful. People love it, get great results. And I just wanted to expand this a little bit. And so I'm about to have a surprise for you. And coming through on Facebook, thanks guys. YouTube's good. Get thumbs up. Hello, everybody. Where are you calling in from, guys? Give me a little city and a little cheer where you're calling in from. But I mentioned a surprise. So I'm going to fly in the surprise because we are having the first practice group with a guest. And I am super excited about this guest. I'm going to just fly him in, but I'm going to keep talking about him. That's what I'm going to do because I got the mic. This, everybody, is Josh Cohen. Josh is a great friend of mine. Him and I have done lots of shenanigans We've done the solo bass nights together. Big shout out to Dave Grossman, who started this tradition. So solo bass as an art, solo bass as expression for bass players who usually back in the right where the drummer is backing everybody else up. Josh is definitely one of those people who has taken this art form to an interesting next level. And so what I asked Josh to do was, because he just released a new book, and also because he's a fantastic educator, I don't, I'm very picky with what I like, but Josh just came out with this book. And it is called, exactly, Tapping. Wait, we can even fly it in one more time. Wait, hang on, hold it up, there we go, 3 times. It is called Tapping Grooves, Volume 1, for bass guitar by Josh Cohen. It services 4, 5, and 6 string bass guitar players, and it contains everything that I think a good book should contain, which is start with the principles of the technique and then bring in musical examples, and that's exactly what Josh does. And I love tapping too. I teach tapping, I play tapping, but I thought it would be a really nice way to expose my network to somebody I really value, and have him teach one of those practice groups. So this is what today's session is about. Josh, you want to say hello?
Hello, and thank you for having me. This is a real pleasure and really a privilege to be the first guest doing one of these practice groups. I think they're great. They seem to be really successful, and people have been really digging them. And I got to be a guest at one of them just to kind of check it out about a week ago. And it was just really cool to see, just the camaraderie that happens. Everyone's learning together. And there's no reason you can't do private lessons and practice groups. That's the best result is to just do as much education as you can.
As you can, yeah. We have some people who are in practice groups, a course that has a support, which is called the cohort, and do private lessons. So, once you're in with me, you're in. That's my policy, and I have a few people who are in all 3. So it's exciting to see them make amazing progress. So yeah, it's we're really happy to host you, Josh. I know it was your birthday yesterday, so happy birthday!
Thank you.
And do you want to tell us a little bit about what got you into tapping, or who maybe?
Yeah. So in terms of who, I would say Victor Wooten and Stanley Jordan.
Nice.
And so I guess, both Victor Wooten, because he was a bass player, and what enamored me was the ability to get more out of the bass than you might have otherwise, in terms of, layering of parts, so polyphonic layering of parts. And I think that's what interests me it's the same on the piano. I've never been so interested in playing as fast as I can or anything like that, and I never could play as fast as other people. But I did
pretty fast.
But like for me, it was like this part, sounds really good, and this part sounds really good, and they sound even better together. How do they fit together? And then just that process of putting them together was just a lot of fun for me. And then tapping was the equivalent on the bass, and then I just kind of went for it. And so I owe a lot of inspiration to Victor Wooten, and of course, like his arrangements. Overjoyed was one of them, and I remember learning. I didn't learn all of it, but I learned a nice chunk of it, and then I did my own arrangement of "Kiss from a Rose," and that was 11 years ago, I think it was now. Nice. So a lot of time has passed, and that was my first tapping arrangement.
Yeah.
And
we're getting a few questions on YouTube that I just want to get into here. Somebody asked, where can you get the book? I would say the best place is probably Amazon, right?
Amazon, yeah.
And I believe, I'm not sure how exactly you're set up, but there's also a possibility with worldwide free shipping on bookdepository.com. You can check if it's up yet. But Amazon, if you have a local Amazon, that's always the best place. But if you're calling in from a country that's outside of Amazon, then bookdepository.com is a great resource.
I didn't even know that.
I'll help you with it. You might not have that set up yet. I'll check. Okay, self-publishers. Self-publishers. Here it is. I was looking on Amazon the other day, and 8 of the top books in the music guitar songbook category. Out of 8 top books, I think 5 or 6 were self-published. And if you just take a few years back, that would have been unheard of. So I think self-publishing has really come a long way, and for good reason. For one, the tools they give us, the education they give us, and the ability for us to hire freelance editors and graphic designers and whatnot. And Josh, I know for a fact how much work that is.
Yeah, and then it's also, you could take a little more of a risk, like self-published, it's you putting in the work. I pitched this book to several publishers, and they all gave me the feedback of, oh, it looks great, sounds great, but it's too much of a niche. So I took the risk, and I did something that I love, and I'm putting it out there so that other people who love it can get interested in it as well. So
yeah, my story is a little bit similar as well, and it's just great that we have the know-how to do this, because a few years back we wouldn't have been able to. And when I started, it was 2016. I was felt like a steeper hill to climb than it is now. And we're getting hellos from Denver, Montreal, love and gratitude from Hawaii, it seems like. We've gotten Sierra Vista, Arizona in the house. Again, Amazon's the best place. Name of the book, Picture's Top is Too Small. We would love to repeat it. It's Tapping Grooves, Volume 1. It's not very thick. It is a great way, if you're practicing something and your practice feels a little stale, and you have, you're mostly learning songs, and a little bit of theory, and a little bit of technique. You've never really thought about getting into tapping. Let me just tell you how much fun it is, because you immediately, and I had that conversation yesterday on a live stream with Misha Marks, by the way, big shout out, that was super fun. Which Misha Marks, I know you know well, Josh, because you've been on his stream. So big shout out to Misha. But what we talked about as well is when you start getting into solo bass, your whole musical attitude and ability opens up, because all of a sudden you're not just about what does a bass player play down there, but all of a sudden you play melodies, all of a sudden you play chords, and you think much wider. And it's very healthy for your bass playing. So I would even argue, and Josh, let me know if you agree with that or not, but I would even argue that if you start tapping for yourself and then you go back to band rehearsal that night, your perception of what the bass does might change a little. What do you think? Is that an exaggeration?
Absolutely. And anytime I've done composing or arranging for solo bass, I'm thinking like a band. I'm like, well, what would the bass player do? Okay, what would the melody do? Well, the melody, you don't want to just hit the notes. You want to have nice ornamentation, embellishments, vibrato. And then I try to split those parts up. And then it's this rhythmic puzzle that's coming together, so that when I'm on the bandstand, and especially when it's like something really simple, I'm playing a country gig or something like that, which, a lot of times that's not such the most difficult technically on the bass, depends on what it is. My ears are much more open up to what is the drummer doing, what is guitar player, and by listening to them, it's not going to cause me to make a mistake. And that's because I've learned more of those coordination skills that you get from solo performance and putting things together. That you don't necessarily, it's harder to achieve that by only ever focusing on single lines, I think. So
very nice. Yeah, I agree. We have Hawaii, Colorado. Funny, just reading some of the comments. A few folks say they ordered the book from Amazon. Somebody else said I was at my place
Thank you.
for 2 days. So wonderful. Somebody Forrest asks, what level are the book and class meant for? Josh, I'll let you answer that.
It's for beginners in tapping. I would suggest that you're at least getting closer to intermediate in terms of just bass playing in general. If you can play finger style, and your scales, a little bit about chords, that would be enough, I would say.
I'm seeing somebody's comments in the comments who's playing. I know Harry asks, I ordered the book from Amazon. I hope I can live up to the challenge. Harry, I know you're playing. You will be golden. You will have a great time in this class. So I know you're playing, and I would say it's maybe just basic facility, just to sort of know what the bass does, how it works. And Harry's way beyond that, by the way. I'm just saying as a general example, an interest and a passion for doing something that's a little bit out of the norm. Maybe one thing I would like to mention, and that is, Josh, I would love to hear your view on that too. I know I have some basses that are set up for grooving, and when I start tapping on them, it can be very hard to get a good tone out of it. So some of you may be sitting at home with some basses with thick strings and really high action, trying to tap, and I know for me that's very hard to do. So what I have done for my tapping is I've got some reserved basses that have lower action and thinner strings. How do you approach that, Josh? And what should people be mindful of in terms of equipment and gear?
Well, for me personally, I keep most of my basses, and there's mainly one bass I play out most of the time anyways, but I have a few four strings as well. And I keep most of them with a low action and lighter gauge strings. However, one of my friends, Adam Fulara, who's an amazing tapping guitarist out of Poland, and I actually took a lesson with him ago as well. And he uses thick strings on his guitar, and he uses a very high action. So technique will change a lot of things. So, and also it depends on what you're doing with the technique. So I find to play single lines with vibrato and really to emulate a singer, I really find it much easier with thinner strings, lower action. But if I'm playing just chordal grooves and like bass lines, you can do that with a high action. Like the bass that you're comfortable with on fingerstyle, you can learn quite a bit of tapping. Now, you might be limited, I'd say, once you get into, hey, I want to play like solos in one hand and like all kinds of crazy stuff in the other hand. That might be a little difficult. But if it's just, something like this, something like that, it doesn't matter. You can have really high action. You're going to be fine.
Yeah. What are some misconceptions about the technique that you run sometimes in with students when you start them on that journey or talk about tapping?
I guess one misconception is that it's hard. I mean, it's the same thing as like, I teach kids piano, and and you teach them to start playing with two hands like very early. So it's not intrinsically difficult. It's just different. So that's one of them. Another thing that is just really common with lots of extended techniques, because tapping you would say is extended technique because it's not the traditional finger style. So anything that's not that slap bass, anything is considered an extended technique. Harmonics. So there's a misconception sometimes with extended techniques that, they're just flashy. It's just all about flash. It's just about showing off. And I would say, no, that's not true. And what I'm inspired by usually is just, I want to emulate this song. I want to emulate this sound that, to most people's ears is pleasant. I'm not as driven by a whole bunch of arpeggios. I've done it. I've done some of that stuff, but that's not really the driving force for me. And I don't think it's not what we're going to focus on either in the class. So.
Can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned polyphonic layering early on. I mean, there is a lot you can do by make something sound more than it is, right? I mean, you don't have to play the root, the third, and the fifth, and the, seventh. You can just get away with playing just the seventh or just the third, or maybe the third and the seventh, and without the root, sometimes even, right? Because our ear picks up on so many more things that are really there. Like, can you just do me a favor? You have your bass on. Can you play like a 2-5-1, just like 3 thirds and sevenths, and then go down a half step and go down a half step? You know what I mean? Like you play the right hand of a 2-5-1.
The right hand. Yeah, sure. So this would be in C major. So, and then if we went to B flat major, and then A flat major.
Now do that first one again and play it with the left hand. Because even though, play the first one again, just the right hand, so we just hear it. Fresh. Perfect. And now, thank you for doing that, by the way. I'm bossing you around here. We didn't rehearse.
Bossing you around.
Can you now play it with the roots?
Yeah.
The same thing.
And it's really nice when you go to the 6.
Oh, it's gorgeous, yes. But even though not all of that was there, right? We could still hear it's a 2-5-1 because we're so used to it.
That's some would call that homophonic, when it's just, if the lines are all moving together, it's an argument to call it homophonic.
No, that is not polyphonic layering. You're right.
Yeah, like
Polyphonic is when
polyphonic
you
might be
have two
different
of them.
lines.
Yes, yeah, for sure. But just harmony, essentially. Harmony is what I should have called it. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a chord melody on guitar. That something that Grant Green or something would play. You might call it homophonic, or you might call a lot of the playing that I'm forgetting. I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He does the album Virtuoso. I can't remember. No, I'm missing his name. Italian American guitarist, like one of the greatest jazz guitarists of all time. Played with Oscar Peterson. I don't know why his name's kind of slipping
And
from
I
me.
can't even help you with it.
Yeah,
I know what you mean. Somebody in the
yeah.
chat will post it, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, I can know in a second.
Yeah.
But he would do homophonic in terms of like the chord melodies, and then fill the space, and then by lines and bass lines in between, and then sometimes it would be a polyphonic, or sometimes it would be giving the impression.
Joe
You can
Pass.
Joe Pass. Oh my God, I
Internet,
can't believe
yeah.
that. I can't believe that wasn't coming to mind. I listen to Joe Pass all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Joe Pass. Oh, amazing. Yeah, speaking, but like something that would be incredibly polyphonic. So yesterday was my birthday, and the one wish I had was that my wife and my baby and the dog, but the dog just came down. We listened to Keith Jarrett's. It was like 1973 concert in Lausanne, which is in Switzerland. It's like a 64-minute improvisation, and I can't believe the polyphony. There was 4, 5 lines sometimes even happening, and it's improvised. And so that was like, and I will say, sorry, this is kind of a tangent a little bit,
No, go for it.
but I would recommend, it's so easy to get caught up in like always, wanting your phone, wanting your technology, wanting your multiple stimuli at a time. So good to just like say, like, I'm going to listen to music and I'm actually going to do nothing else.
True that. Yeah.
And it was like, we had to move heaven and earth to make that, hour happen, where it was like, my wife wanted to have some food. I'm like, no, eat first. And then we're only going to listen. And so I'm like,
a listening part. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't get to listen to enough music. So I agree. It would be like a meditative practice.
Exactly.
Almost,
like even start small. It's like, all right, 15 minutes a day. I'm gonna listen to music without doing anything else.
Yeah. Good one. I like it. Phil makes the joke. You could see it past your memory since it's Joe Pass. So.
No.
Okay. So, right. But good one, Philip. Okay, this is a question I had on my mind. If people aren't into solo bass, should they still learn tapping? Or
Yes.
is there a way how to use it in a band context, perhaps?
I should rephrase it. It's not that they should, because I'm not telling anyone what they should do. But I would say it's valuable, and it's definitely could be valuable in a band context, especially if you're in like a guitar trio, like drums, guitar, bass, and the guitarist wants to solo. It could be really nice to play some lines, right? So what if this is one of the grooves from the book. Okay, this is one of the more intermediate grooves.
Which one is it? Let's pull it up.
Ooh, they all have silly names. I put them all with names that like sound like what they're doing. So this one's called "I've Been Run Down, but I Keep On Going." So it's nice. Number 10. So that's getting into the more intermediate. And so you can imagine a guitar player would be like, "Oh, this is awesome!" Like we were a trio, but now it's really fun to play against this. And it's not solo bass, although it sounds nice solo, but. blues kind of situation, we were talking about, we were talking about 2-5-1s and things like that, or guide tones, thirds and sevenths, right? So you might have a blues in whatever, G. Let's just do G. So. So that's not solo bass. I mean, you might say it sounds nice, but it just sounds like a groove, and it's not, a melody. But very nice for a guitar player to play over. The similar kind of thing. You could do a bass and drums duet with a singer. Nice. But you could also just keep this for your own study, and that is like you're learning about harmony, and you're learning about bass lines and the function of bass lines in some ways in a deeper level when you're trying to put them together. Because it means in real time you're able to conceive and hear them, and you might be surprised that it could be a challenge at first, but every time you kind of like you go 3 steps ahead, maybe 1 step back, and you kind of get some perspective. So yeah, I think it's useful regardless. I remember when I first got into the technique, my immediate thing was I was trying to play walking bass lines, going through the real book. This is like a very typical book of jazz standards, and I was like, can I play guide tones, like little chords, and play bass lines? Practice. Yeah, so I just did a lot of that kind of stuff, and I would start to like slowly put it in there, and you don't want to just play it at a gig and then someone's like, yeah, but like it wasn't grooving, right? So you have to make sure you're which each when you want to introduce it, make sure you really practiced it, so that no one says, oh, you're just trying to be flashy, but you're losing the groove, right? So you don't want to do that. So
yeah, great comments. I agree with that, and that's a great example. I mean, I play in a duo, and so if you find yourself doing tapping and all of a sudden one of your bandmates, whatever, sax player or even guitar or whatnot, they might go, hey, let's, on the side, do some stuff. It's so much fun.
Do a cool little intro or one song on your set, like very cool kind of stuff.
Yeah. We have some comments here. Tim Lurch is wonderful at that, and Nate Lopez. I know Nate. You know Nate.
Yeah. So he played on solo bass night.
He did play on solo bass night, and does an incredible merging of bass and guitar.
He does it finger style. He does it like similar to Charlie Hunter.
Charlie Hunter, yeah. He told me he's influenced by his neighbor Michael Mannering. So, and I think the guitar that Nate plays is also kind of like a hybrid between a bass and a guitar, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great comment. So, I am having down there a ticker running that tells you about an early bird expiring. So this expires at the end of this month. And I'm not sure what time zone my platform is set to, most likely Pacific, but whenever it's midnight there, at the end of this month, it will expire. So you can sign up right now and save a substantial amount of money by using the code JoshTap15. This is the first time we're doing a practice group with a guest tutor. I would love this to be very successful for Josh. So if you like my teaching and you've enjoyed practice groups or are curious to find out more about tapping or how practice groups work, then please do join us. Practice-Josh is the website, respaceblock.com, practice-Josh, and you see that down there on the screen. Let me think about a couple of the other things that you're thinking of, Josh, if you want to chime in on anything.
I just started thinking about any rumors of anyone else that's going to do a practice group.
We'll throw you in the deep end here first, and then we'll see how that goes. But it's wonderful to have you break it in, and I love the topic, and I'm really excited about all that. Well, what made you write the book? I'm curious about that.
I did on my last solo bass album, Freedom, I did a transcription book, and it was very much like I knew it wouldn't have like a wide audience, but I was already writing all the pieces, and I like to write a lot of things down. This was the first book, my second book that I've written, but I actually thought, you know what, there might be some people that want to learn from it. So that's what drove it. But it was a pleasure putting all these together and like, constantly saying, okay, well, how do I like emulate? So if you go through a lot of the grooves, you're going to notice there's a lot of them that have very similar chord progressions with a little change or a little bit different than a lot of popular music that's out there. Because what's copyrighted is actually like the exact thing or melodies. So there's some grooves that kind of sound like Michael Jackson, but not quite, or like there's, but not quite. So that's, so I had a lot of fun just kind of like, getting inspired and listening to different music and be like, all right, how do you do it in bass? And what I want you to get from it, I don't want you to just, at first you might say, all right, I'm just playing these fun grooves. But what I'd like you to get is like the concept. Oh, what's happening in that groove? Oh, well, it's like a chord in this hand, and it's playing this pattern, and then there's this bass line. And then you might say, well, I want to play such and such song. Okay, how do I do something similar to that groove? And I'll apply it to some other piece that I'm playing with my band or whatever. So the idea is always to take things a step further, and maybe I'm kind of going a little beyond the question, but like, that's one of the things I want to do in the class at the end of the class. I want everyone to get to the point where they can arrange even a small, bit of something that they're going to do themselves. And if they can, I want them to try to write it out as well as get it under their fingers.
Do people need to be able to read music to join your course or read your book for that matter?
They need to be able to figure out tabs at the very least. So, which I think, most players, even if they don't read music, have dabbled with tabs.
I want to commend you, by the way, for putting tab into a book. It takes a lot of guts and courage to, first of all, come out with a book, put yourself out there, all of that, especially on a niche topic, And, but you also put tab in there. And I know for my part, I got a lot of flack for putting out tab, because people say, aren't you a real book? Aren't you like supposed to be a real like music theory teacher or whatnot? And my argument is always, look, a lot of people come in, they already know tab. Right? If you take away what they are comfortable with, if you take away what they already know and just say, no, first we got to go, every good boy does fine. And then, you have that on page 1, and on page 5, you have pages and pages of arpeggios and scales written out. That's the best way to make people run, because any bass player already knows way more theory than they might realize. Especially the typical bass player that, has been playing maybe in bands, maybe has been dabbling with just getting their tab off of YouTube or whatever, but they've got good ears typically, and they've played a bunch of songs, and now they're at a point where they want to put the dots together, right? And the surest way I found that in many, many years of teaching, is the surest way to make them really not enjoy themselves is to say, forget everything you know, and let's start here from scratch, So why not use tab? It's something you're comfortable with. Plus, with a book like yours in particular, Josh, I mean, it shows you fingering. It shows you where to position it. I can look at the notation all day long, but there might be, and I've noticed that there were several where I thought, I wouldn't have thought to finger it like this. I would have fingered it, the other way or whatever. Maybe I have a 6-string bass in my hand, I'll finger it down there, and otherwise I have to, spread it out or whatever. But tab is super useful, especially for a book like that. So
yeah, I mean, it's like a very tough thing to respond to in a quick way. I would say that absolutely tab has utility, whether or not, like, doesn't matter how well you read music, there's utility for tab in some ways. Right. And of course, yeah, like pulling out, the rug from someone when they, that's what they can start with, and they're already used to reading tab, definitely it's good to dive into reading music, but relate the music to what they already know is certainly something I would agree with. I did actually get some hate for putting tab there. In fact, it's because, No Treble shared the book, the release of the book. And there was definitely someone making a big comment, and then someone saying, oh, tab is fine, but put it on a separate page. So, but, what you get in the book is a grand staff usually, or sometimes when you include the multiple bass, you have more than a grand staff. But I put it together the same staff, which is the same as what you would see for piano as a grand staff. So it takes a little more pages to get all the music, you know, but you can always see the tabs. And with tapping, like, it's just some of the stuff can be counterintuitive, like not the earlier stuff, but you know, the more you get along, you know, I've played things like Bach two-part inventions,
Oh
um,
man,
and
that is killer. You guys should. What can you, Fred? Can you find that on my website or on Josh's website and put the video into the comments? That'd be awesome. It's on
thank
your
you.
website, right? The music of
Yeah,
joshcohen.com. Yeah,
yeah, it's on there. Yeah,
because that's mind blowing.
thank
How you
you.
play that? Yeah.
And you know, I had to put a lot of thought into like how I'm gonna, especially like early on with those, you know, how I'm gonna get those notes. Like it was all written, so um, what would, if I only put it in notation and I said it's my arrangement, it would just be Bach's music, which is great, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's like it wouldn't tell you much about how to play it on the bass unless you had notation with a zillion numbers everywhere on the notation saying, you know. So the tab makes it clear. So
It's
yeah,
like
there's like
fingering and
controversial
then some.
topics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they are. There was
Another
some
controversial
comments
topic
about
is
that too.
always metronomes. You always like get the whole debate about metronomes, different philosophies on there, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just
We
so
don't
easy
get to
that
those.
someone has like a common, you know, like they hear a common trope and then it gets repeated and they think it, you know, a certain statement stands for the kind of person they are, or you know, something like that, and then they take it without doing the research. They kind of say, oh, you know, this is the kind of person I am. I'm like an anti-tab guy, and then it just kind of goes. And
Yeah, I find it often said that people get, you know, because let's be honest, right? This might be a controversial statement, but when you start practicing and the going gets tough, like for example, I like to do index middle alternating, right? Or I like to use the metronome, right? So if somebody goes, the metronome is hard, index middle alternate is hard, I don't want to do that. And then they find an educator who does not do that, then it's great to say, oh, this is bollocks. And I don't like the metronome, and they say you shouldn't, you know. But before you have really walked down that path and followed that method to a T, you don't know.
you don't truly know, yeah.
You don't truly know. You just know that right now you are at a juncture that gets hard, and that's probably the moment where you should hang in there. So
It's funny. Like I definitely, I would say I go through periods of time where I'll use a metronome a lot, and then I go through times when I use it less. I did, you know, I remember I had a student and they were recording some bass lines over giant steps actually. So they were recording bass lines over it, and then the bass lines, they were all kind of, you know, behind the beat. And I said, okay, I want you to play along with giant steps again, but I just want you to play a B major scale up and down the whole time. It's not going to work with a bunch of the chords, but I want you to play with really solid time. And his time was perfect. So I said, okay, in this situation, it was because you didn't know the notes and it was making you drag. So that's one thing. The other thing is counting. You know, you'd be surprised if you count and you force yourself to count while you're working on something. Then you get the metronome out and you're like, oh, wow, I'm perfect with the metronome. So the thing I like to do with the metronome is stuff where you kind of keep removing the metronome or seeing if you can play around with the time. And like the metronome is perfect. So you kind of use it as a test. But don't just willy-nilly, and you address this in your book too. It's like, don't just like, if you're first learning the notes, don't just throw in the metronome. You're just gonna make yourself tense. That's the step. That's like the final step. It's like, all right, I got the notes. I know what's going on. I understand it. Let's see how good my time is. And then, but yeah, like it's obviously an amazing thing that we have these in perfect time, you know, piece of technology that, you know, they didn't have, you know. I think it was like Beethoven. Around Beethoven, they started having wind-up ones, and somewhere, you know, during Beethoven's career, it was like, oh, there's this thing called a metronome, and it's, you know, but eventually it gets slower and slower the longer it's running.
I don't mind it, and they're not very accurate either. I've got a really old one I can't reach because my cable's too short, but it's like tick tock, tick tock.
Oh no,
it's
that's
old.
bad.
It's really ancient, but yeah, those wind-up ones.
It's a good art. It's a good piece for your mantle.
For sure, yeah. I popped into the chat the Bach two-part invention from your website, and highly recommend you all listen to that. We also got a question from somebody who says, did Michael Mannering endorse this book?
He did.
And I would love to read that, if I may. Or do you want to
Sure.
read it? You read it. You read it.
Sure,
Josh.
sure. So the full endorsements, there's actually an endorsement page. I put like partial endorsements on the back of a few people, and Ariana was one of the endorsers of the book as well.
Read Michael's, because we have, as solo bass players, Michael is at least one of my North Stars. So.
Okay, I'll read. Actually, maybe it's weird. Okay, all right. Fine.
You read Michael.
Michael is a super, super nice dude, I will say. All right, he says, Josh is a wonder. Using a mastery of the tapping technique, he creates beautiful and fulfilling solo bass music. His new book, Tapping Grooves Volume 1, invites you into this world by providing clever, well-formulated etudes that are as fun to play as they are educational. So I'm guessing, I think he played a few of them at least. You'll enjoy working on them so much you won't notice how much you're learning. So he was absolutely very generous with his time. And it's actually, he was supposed to play on Solo Bass Night, the last one back in 2019, but he had appendicitis the day before.
What kind of excuse is that? Come on.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, but that is a heck of an endorsement, and man knows what he's talking about. So, okay, I popped the website you want to click into the chat, arisbassblog.com/practice-josh. That kept you longer than I thought, but we had some nice questions and
it was fun.
People on, and yeah, it was wonderful. So thanks so much for making time, Josh. I highly recommend you all tune in to arisbassblog.com/practice-josh for checking out this practice group. If you want to know how a practice group works, email us on the Ari's Bass Blog contact tab. I can send you a short sample. We have some sample compilations that I can send you if you just kind of want to know how this works. You can stay anonymous if you like, because it is being recorded, so that's something to be mindful of. It is being recorded because if you miss a lesson, then you will want to watch the recording. Another question we often get is how long is the material available? So the practice group itself is 10 weeks. It's actually 11 weeks with 1 week off during Thanksgiving. And it starts, when is it? Tuesdays at, Josh, help me out, Tuesdays?
At 1 p.m. Central Time, so that's 11 a.m. Pacific Time, and that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard. And the first day is September 21st, and it runs for 10 weeks, but the 10th week, the week of Thanksgiving, you have off, and then the final week is the week after Thanksgiving.
And it was 11 a.m. Pacific, right?
11 a.m. Pacific Time.
Yeah, I'm putting that into the chat. Thank you, Fred. Super. So we got that information also at arisbassblog.com/practice-josh. And we have this coupon expiring, Josh Tap 15. So if you have any questions about any of this, email us. We'll be happy to help you out. You are being recorded. You can stay anonymous if you like. What else can I tell you? Oh yeah, how long does it stay on is what a lot of people ask. We keep it on another 10 weeks after the end of the class. So you have plenty of time to absorb the material. Josh has a bunch of handouts. I don't know, some backing tracks maybe even. And so there's a lot of material that comes with it that you can download or screenshot or grab.
A lot of stuff that won't be from the book. So it's going to be some stuff from the book and then a lot of stuff from
So the book is required, right?
The book is required.
Yeah, the book is required to get you, homework page, what have you.
And then these are recommended also.
Oh, we did do the raffle.
Oh, that's right.
Raffle.
We still have time, so maybe people are still sticking around.
We'll do the raffle now. We have. So, what are we raffling off, and why are we doing this? Because all of us have a bunch of these beautiful jewels. What do they do, Josh? You want to tell us?
The fret wraps?
Yeah. Okay, everybody, you can win something. Don't run away. Stay on.
They're string dampeners, and I mean, I guess the tradition goes back. I think Victor Rudin and his brother, they were using hair bands, and I've used those. Believe me, I prefer fret wraps. It's a dedicated device or technology. It's very simple technology. They look cool. They got funky colors. And it basically dampens your strings. and you can move them around. It almost has like a different effect, like if you have it further up than when you have it close to the bridge. Some people use it for a lot of finger style slap kind of stuff sometimes when you keep it just close to, not the bridge, I meant to say the nut over here. But I find it very useful for tapping. If I'm playing something and I don't, it's very hard to constantly be muting, especially on a 6-string bass, but also on the 4-string.
Though you have extra fingers, Josh, I'm still convinced of that. You have some extra fingers that you're flying in there sometimes.
Yeah, so you might play a bass line or whatever, and it take your hand off and it's automatically muted. So it's really good for that. It's also good, like if you're in the studio and you're just having a lot of trouble doing muting yourself, it could be a little bit of a crutch, but I think it'd be useful, for the right take. And you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna put one of these on and make sure that this is a really clean take. But for me, for the tapping stuff is what I use it for a lot. So it is strongly recommended, not necessary, but very strongly recommended. And they're cool, and they have so many funky colors.
Awesome.
They got like leopard print. They have like, I think like Nikki West and Bobby Lewis have their own like lines with their own prints, whatever. So they're cool. Fret Raps have been using them for about, I don't know, like 15 years now, almost now.
So do I. I have them on all my basses, and they're great. If you use a
they're by Groove Gear. Groove Gear is the company.
Gear, yes. And some people asked for the link of the book. I was able to post the direct link on Amazon into YouTube, Facebook. If somebody can dig it up, that'd be awesome. And I wanted to also say we are raffling off. So Groove Gear was the host of our second solo bass night in LA. And we have a very great relationship. We're both endorsers, and I love their gear. And we're now doing a raffle. And the question is, and I'm just going to say, YouTube is your friend. I'm going to say 2 things. I'd love for you to play during the break. We'll give them, let's say, 2 minutes. Okay? I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. During those 2 minutes, you all can Google. 2 minutes is not much time. Let's make it 3. And whoever has it first correctly on my screen. So I know we're streaming to different locations, so somebody might be faster than others, but whoever has it first will win. And what will you win? You will win not 1, not 2, but 3 Fret Wraps by Groove Gear. So I bet they'll let you pick the size and shapes and colors and all that good stuff. So I'm going to put a timer. I'm going to tell you the question. Google is your friend, is all I'm going to say. When Josh does a local gig, how does he transport his bass? Again, when Josh does a local gig, so when he's not flying, okay, how does he transport his beautiful 4- and 6-string basses?
I do this.
Go. You balance them on your finger. Okay.
I do this.
The timer is going. Right. The timer is going off now, and it will set. Hang on, timer. What I say? 3 minutes. Or whoever gets it first. Start. Josh, you want to play us one?
Yeah. Oh, a groove?
Play us a tune. You got 3 minutes. Timer is running, guys. Timer is running.
A tune. All right, I'll do blues. I was feeling the blues earlier.
Go for it. Love it. There goes the timer. Okay, we get, let's see, we got Uber, Base Mobile, and then we got the right answer. Phil was the first one to say it. He said, Groove Gear Bass Bag. And it's, I mean, would you let it count or not?
Let's count it.
Let's let it count. Okay, because I'll keep reading, because that was on YouTube. So Philip,
Oh,
that was YouTube on Philip. Then there's Harry says he would always ride a bike everywhere, depending on where you live. Doesn't work so well in Nashville or LA. Forrest asks the capsule. Now the capsule, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, but that's the flight version, right?
I don't do it. Yeah, I don't do it for local gigs. Now, I actually have a couple times, and regretfully because I prefer it for the the further ones. So.
It's for the flight ones, yeah. So and that's not what it says on your website. So, but and then we got the book. Thank you very much, Fred, for putting that in there. Capsule. And then Carlos says Gig Blade Silver. And that, of course,
Sliver. That's very close. So
that's the what does it say? It's silver, right?
It's sliver. So there's a couple of letters just swapped.
Oh, it's just because it's my bad eyes. He's got it right. Sliver. I've always thought it was called silver because it's silver colored. But there you go. I have one of those too. Love it. It's very, very great for flying. I'll tell you why. The reason I use it for flying because I always hope I can check. But what's great is it doesn't stick out like some of the other ones. And you know, when you're coming and it kind of is, it's kind of like here. So you kind of sometimes can slide by, but when you come with something big sticking out behind your neck, it's harder to do. So this is what I would say. I would say we have 2 winners. I'll sponsor one, and Jay was kind enough to sponsor the other. So we'll do that. We got Carlo as well as Philip. Please email me on my contact paytab@arispaceblog.com to claim your winning of a 3-pack of awesome Groove Gear fret reps. They are wonderful.
That's very nice of you to sponsor the other one.
I'm sponsoring the other one because I don't want to hear no. It's like, but I got it.
But I got it.
Plus, I read it wrong. Sliver.
But my mommy says I'm special.
What's that?
But my mommy says I'm special.
Special, exactly. All right, I've kept you for a whole hour. Lots of people stayed on till the end. Thank you so much.
It was
everybody.
fun to
really
be kept.
It. We need likes and I need subscribes on my YouTube channel. Please, everybody, hit that subscribe button. Support Josh. Get his book. Get his book. It is a wonderful addition to your library. You don't have anything like this in your base book library. I can tell you that for a fact. Even if you have all the other stuff, you want this for inspiration, for trying out some things. I pick this up. I go and try some things. It gives you ideas, and it just makes you fit at something you may have never tried. And if you have, you absolutely need this because it's a wonderful guide. Those exercises in the beginning with playing the scale and playing half notes, quarter notes, full whole notes while playing the scale are just wonderful. So
and it's shiny. It's very shiny.
It's very shiny. You did a wonderful job with this. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. We did 2 days of streaming for me, so this was just a heck of a great weekend, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Josh, tab 15, you know what to do. I hope we see you online at the practice group. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. You want to play us out? I'll fade us out.
Yeah, sure, yeah. What should I play? Oh, I'll play one of the grooves from the book.
Go for it.
All right, this is
Awesome.
get into that intermediate stage, this one, just because I like to show those ones off. So, all right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4.